Hello, readers and folks alike. So, today is Friday, 30th of January 2026, and basically, this is part of a series which I've already started where every 2 weeks on a Friday I talk about a book I've read, or either a book I've finished or I've read one already before, finished recently, read one before. Can't I can't promise spoiler free because, anyways, moving on. Now, yes, I know it hasn't been 2 weeks exactly, right? It's only been a week. But yeah, I wanted to share a novel that I read very recently, which is this one, The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. But before we get to that, the point of the series is to encourage people, young and old, to read novels, to get interested in novels, and to grow what I like to call the reading army. It's also a personal goal for me to help me build confidence, become more social, and feel comfortable talking to people, to talk on stages, to talk in front of cameras, that sort of thing. So if you're watching on Instagram, make sure to follow along, and if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe because this video will be posted on both platforms. Anyway, moving on. Today's book I'm talking about is The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I've read all of part one, and I was in a few pages into part one. Basically, I am one second. Yeah, I am basically here, right? You see, here, I'm I'm here, and the book is really long, like 551 pages for this version. So let's begin with the Idiots Part One. The novel basically opens with Prince Mishkin, who is a poor gentleman man, and his epilepsy, and he is basically he has basically boarded a train to Russia, his home country, after years in a Swiss sanatorium. So on the train to Petersburg, he meets a man, right? He meets a man. His name is Rogozhin. Rogozhin is Rogozhin is passionate, and he's a passionate and volatile man who just inherited a huge fortune, and he's obsessively in love with a woman named Nastasia Filipovna. We'll get to that later. So the two men, Mishkin and Rogozhin, they're opposites of each other. Basically, Mishkin is innocent and compassionate, and Rogozhin is he's intense and he's driven by his desires, and yeah, so he's driven by his desires. So after Mishkin, after Mishkin comes or he reaches Saint Petersburg, or Petersburg you can call it, he visits his distant relatives, the Panchin family, where you know his basically his honesty and kindness disarms people. Sometimes people put up a wall to defend themselves from emotional pain. So his his honesty and kindness is like there, and it disarms people almost immediately. He also openly speaks about suffering, death, and compassion, especially he condemns capital punishment. By capital punishment meaning firing squad or hanging or beheading. That's what he condemns. He does not like that at all. People people often call him an idiot for who he is, for being way too good without any boundaries, something like that. It eventually becomes clear that Mishkin understands human suffering more deeply than anyone else in the story. Now we're going to go to Nastasia Filipovna, where we were introduced to her as a beautiful but deeply wounded woman. When she was a teenager, she was groomed and exploited by a wealthy older man named Afanasy Totsky. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Now, Totsky basically he was rich, and then he exploited her, groomed her, and something like that. So now he wants to remove her from his life, so he can marry someone with respectably to respective ways. So to solve this problem of his, him and General Lipanchin, they pressured Gania, who is a poor ambitious clerk, to marry Nastasia for money. And for Ganya, marriage is a transaction meaning for money and not an act of love, which is really wrong. It's 2026. It's a really wrong thing to do. You would get brutally judged for that, for that mindset that marriage is a transaction, not an act of love. Of course, Nastasia is fully aware that these men around her are trying to buy her. She gets angry, she gets humiliated, and she behaves proactively, which exposes their hypocrisy, I guess. And then the only person who truly sees her pain is Prince Mishkin, and he views her as not as a foreign person, but as a victim of the society that they are in. The Petersburg is a ruined society of people who are after money and fame and shit. So, so moving forward, at her birthday, at Nastasia's birthday, tensions rise, tensions explode, right? So tensions tensions are there, and Rogozhin shows up, right? He shows up with 100,000 rubles, which is the currency of Russia. He openly offers it to Nastasia to take her away, right? In the shock of the moment, Mishkin also proposes to her. Like, he proposes to her, he offers her respect, he offers her forgiveness, he offers her life without shame, which he would not get with Rogozhin. And Mishkin reveals that he himself unexpectedly inherited a fortune from some I think shopkeeper. His name was Papushin. He had no heirs, and he died or something. So he inherits a an unexpectedly large fortune of 2.4 million rubles, right? And despite Nastasia realizing that Mishkin genuinely loves her, she realizes that he genuinely loves her, and he sees her as an innocent woman, innocent person of uh, innocent person affected by the society and bad things of other people, society and uh, yeah, bad actions of others, right? And you know what Nastasia does? She refuses him. She refuses him because she believes that she doesn't deserve goodness, and she chooses Rogoshin instead. And by that, she embraces self-destruction, and she mocks everyone's greed by throwing the money, the 100,000 rubles, into the fire and asking the men to fetch it with their bare hands. I think she asked, if I remember correctly, She asked Ganya to fetch the money with his bare hands, right? Which which humiliated the men who tried to control her with wealth, right? So, anyways, part one basically ends with Nastasia leaving with Rogozhin and then Mishkin running after them, which sets up a tragic conflict between pure compassion, obsessive passion, and a society ruled by money. This is really wrong that society is ruled by money. It shouldn't be ruled by money, which is my own take on it. So, yeah, I read part one and a little bit into part two as I showed you in the beginning. Anyway, thank you for sticking around, and uh, yeah, make sure to like and subscribe.